Turns out you can get to $200 million a year in 5 years with just 4 products. Not only did that happen, but this was an entrepreneur who wasn't even in the game a few years ago. And today we're gonna break down exactly how he got there. I had Logan Chierotti on the podcast earlier this year, and he told the story about building a 9-figure brand, mostly focused on Amazon.com. And I brought him to the Capitalism Conference because that's where he got his start. A few years ago, he was an attendee at one of our events, and he got the idea to start a supplement company, which is now known as Physician's Choice and does $200 million a year. What the French toast did he do between then and now? But the reason I want to share some clips from this talk with you is because I know so many of you watch this content, or maybe this is the first video you're seeing, and you feel like a big amount of success is forever away. So I want to break down someone who was in the audience watching content just a few years ago and today runs a 9-figure business. To be specific, it's a $200 million a year company, mostly on Amazon.com. And spoiler alert, he did almost all of it with just 4 products. Remember the formula from 12 months to 1 million? It's 4 products at 25 sales a day at a $30 price point. That's a $1 million business. Logan makes those numbers look really small because it's 4 products with thousands of sales every day at about a $30 price point, and he has a $200 million business. As a result of hearing me talk with Logan on stage, you're going to realize how simple this plan can be, how you're probably overcomplicating it, and just how much wealth and success can be generated if you follow the plan over a couple of years. Let's dive into this talk with Logan Chierotti. Logan, why don't we start by you telling me where you were in this room 5 or 6 years ago, starting over, looking for a new path, trying to find your next mountain to climb.
Yeah, I guess I was just like all you guys. I was sitting out here, but I saw I was like, there's an opportunity here because a lot of really young kids at the time were making a bunch of money. And at the time, this was Amazon. I think it was 6 years ago, maybe, or Capcom 6 years ago in Austin. But it was really Amazon focused. Now we're talking about TikTok and all these other channels. At the time, it was Amazon. And I just kind of got a fire lit under me where I was like, you know what? I'm going to go all in on this. I'm going to double down. I have a marketing background. So I felt okay, I could probably do something here with the marketing, SEO kind of background I have. And so I have a business partner who's here with me, Ryan, and we just doubled down on Amazon and went all in. And it wasn't easy, right? The first year we got kicked in the teeth. It was horrible.
Yeah, you mentioned that you took a loss the first year or two, correct?
Yeah.
And what looking back on that, was that a necessary part of it, or not from a personal growth perspective, but from the business perspective? Were you too aggressive, or was that a necessary part of getting to the scale where you are now?
It's a good question. I guess we are where we are, so it worked, but we were probably too aggressive, and we were probably overly cocky, right? I thought okay, these young kids are making a bunch of money, they don't know shit. I'm gonna come in and outspend them, outmarket them. And then we got there and I was just, holy shit, this is much harder than we thought. We were getting our asses kicked. We were overly aggressive, but it worked out. But I think we probably didn't have to be as aggressive.
Could you explain what that meant of you were being overly aggressive? Does that mean that you were spending too much to acquire customers? Does that mean you were launching too many products? Looking back, what was too aggressive about your approach? Because there's approximately 8 people in the room who are I'll take a loss for a year to have a $200 million business. Doesn't sound too aggressive to me. So looking back, what was too aggressive?
I mean, we lost $1 million our first year, 800,000, which was almost all my net worth. Me and my partner, I was tell my wife, I think we're gonna have to file for bankruptcy. I was laying on the floor, crying in my room. I was in a dark place. I was this is bad. I've really screwed up here.
The first thing to know is that Logan launched Physician's Choice and took most of his sales on Amazon.com. And he went all in. He went super aggressive, which now he kind of regrets. Because after the first year of being in business, he had lost $1 million. He was $1 million poorer than before he started the business, and he almost went bankrupt. But he turned the whole thing around, and he did it by focusing on fewer things rather than more. I hope that sounds familiar if you watch our content. So let's go into what happened when Logan started this business a couple years ago.
But I think we were overly aggressive to answer your question on marketing spend. At the time, promotions were a big thing to do well on Amazon, so we were doubling down on promotions. We launched too many SKUs. It was just like throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and seeing what works. But we eventually found what worked.
And from what I remember about our conversation on the podcast, one of the big turning points for you was actually doing less.
Yeah,
it was actually narrowing in. Okay, you went wide, and you were trying to maximize this channel, but you're losing money, and so at some point you had to pare down and get really focused. At what point in the process was that focus now front and center?
That was probably year 2 or 3. But on that point, I find like, for us, I think focus was probably like the key lever and like what made us successful. And like to this day still is. And what I mean by that is like, once you find an edge and you're like, okay, we can make money, right? Like you find something that works on TikTok or Amazon or whatever, it's so easy to just be like, I'm gonna go launch 1 million products. I'm gonna expand this to 1 million different channels. Like you're just gonna like, it's much harder to stay disciplined and say like, you know what? No, I'm going to focus on like 1 or 2 core products and push those really hard and like put everything behind those. Like I think that discipline in my mind is like what made us really successful, because we said year 2 or 3, we had launched 15, 20 SKUs, like 4 of them were really working. The rest were just kind of floundering. And I kind of had like an introspective moment with my partner where we said like, you know what? We're really good at marketing. Like we're not really good at like supply chain and innovation. Like those are not our like core skills. Like we hire people for that and they do a great job. But like, what are we really good at? And it was marketing. So I was like, we could market 2 or 3 SKUs really well. We could probably be like the leader in probiotics. We could double down on probiotics, but like we can't be the winner in turmeric and we can't be the winner in osh. Like we can't have the number 1 SKU in every supplement category. So
because somebody else is going to have that focus in that category,
right, for
and
sure.
you can't out focus them.
Right, exactly.
When you have spread a bunch of different products.
100%. And so we made a tough decision. Like let's cut stuff, even though it was making money. Right, let's cut parts of our business. Let's cut out distractions, and let's just focus on our core SKUs. So for 2.5 years, we didn't launch 1 new SKU. We didn't try to launch a new
for 2.5 years?
2.5 years.
Wow, I didn't know that part.
I mean, even to today, like, you know, if we do, like, we'll probably do around 200 million sales this year. That's made up 3 or 4 SKUs make up 80% of that revenue. And so we still just double down. And like, we just started launching new SKUs again last year. But before that, like 2.5 years, we didn't launch 1 new SKU, poured all our money back into 3 core SKUs. Just like, these are, and they kept growing. And it kept, like, you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh, this might cap out, but we just kept reinvesting.
This comes up time and time again with the entrepreneurs that I work with and the entrepreneurs that I invest in at the Capitalism Fund. We're distracted by what everybody else is doing. TikTok is hot and Amazon is growing and you should build an email list and you should sponsor influencers and you should do all of this stuff. And after a few months, you're just distracted all over the place with no idea where to put your focus, and we wonder why we're not growing. Don't worry, I only know because I've struggled with this too. But as Logan shared, and as I've discovered both personally and working with hundreds of entrepreneurs, it's by doing a few things very well that you start to break out. In fact, if all you did was have a small email list and a couple of products on Amazon.com, and you get good at those 2 things, you can have a multi-million-dollar business. And guess what? That takes like 6 months. The plan is 12 months if you do it slowly. But if you have an audience and you're good on Amazon, that's all you need to do to have a 7-figure business. And in Logan's case, when they started doing fewer things and selling fewer products, they broke out of losing money and they started making gobs of money. And today they're a $200 million a year business. So I asked Logan, how did you have the conviction to double down on something? How did you know when something was working enough to say, that's the thing, that's when I need to double click on, let's go into that? Here's what he said to that question.
So what gave you the knowledge or the knowing to be able to say, if we really double down on these 3, then I can own the market and I know that it's going to be this big, even though the data wasn't supporting that at the time?
Well, I think the data did support it. Like when we, you know, like we hired like really good people. So we have a really good analytics person, and they started like digging around in Amazon and digging around the category. And they're like, the probiotics category has so much white space in it, like to room to grow. So like for me, I was kind of blind to it. I didn't know like one way or the other, but like having good people on our team that could do this research come to me and say like, hey, we gotta, you know, we're not even close to the ceiling yet, where we can keep doubling down, we can keep pushing, we can keep growing. But I think like on a smaller scale, like I think probably every one of your businesses has more room to grow than you probably think.
Amen.
Like it's just like, I was talking to Vlad in here the other day and he was telling me about his product and I'm like, you have so much room to grow. Like just trying to launch new SKUs to get new revenue is like, it's one way to do it if you're really good at innovation and I don't know, bringing products and supply chain. But if you're really good at marketing and that's what your core skill is, like a single product can be $100 million plus business any day.
So how did you know that when you were having that conversation? How did you know that there was so much more upside on that one or two product? What gives you that clarity?
You know, I didn't know for sure, but actually, funny enough, like Goalie, which a lot of us know, like has a
The apple cider vinegar thing? Yeah, okay.
I mean, they were like a rocket ship, and I was looking at them, and I was like, you know, this brand is just like crushing it. And they have one SKU, they're like pushing 500 million in sales. Like,
wow.
I was like, why can't we do that with probiotics, right? Like, why can't we, like, no one has done that in that category. There isn't like a Vital Proteins or like a cool brand that's like really broke through in the probiotics category. Like, why can't we just do what they're doing? And so that's like that, like copying their model is kind of like what gave me the insight. Like, let's do this.
As you can see, Logan wanted to win and he put all of his energy into winning at one thing. They put all of their money into winning in one strategy. And over the long term, it worked out. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend the exact strategy that Logan did because he was worried about going bankrupt. He was worried about losing everything. And he kept going when most people would just quit. Now, again, I don't think that's good advice for most entrepreneurs. So I dialed back and I said, all right, Logan, I'm glad that it worked out for you, but most people shouldn't take that risk. Can we go into the actual strategy that took you from almost bankruptcy to a $200 million business? How do we allocate our focus? What did you do that actually got you to break into profitability and predictable scale? So in this section, we go into more of the tactics that grew his e-commerce business.
The way you're describing it almost seems too simple.
Yeah.
So there had to be certain metrics that you were optimizing for in order to ensure that you're going to become the number one in the categories. Are you putting all your energy into review generation, into pay-per-click, into organic?
Okay, I get it. I mean, for us, pay-per-click was the biggest thing. And at the time, like this is like 2019, 2020, like in this, I don't know, even 2018, 2019, 2021, like these years, not a lot of people were spending money on Amazon pay-per-click. Like it was like, Dolan was talking about how we like took their bestseller badge in the probiotic category, and that's because they weren't spending money on pay-per-click. They were just like riding this organic wave, like making a bunch of cash. And we were looking at like, we wanted to be the bestseller in every category. Like I like to win. I like to be in categories where I can be the bestseller. I can get that badge because then it increases our conversion rate, like instantly becomes like a cash cow. So I was like, I'm going to spend money to get these badges. Like it's tons of pay-per-click, tons of discounting, like, I mean, for like 2 years, we were in a battle with like Garden of Life, trying to keep these bestseller badges. Like I've always been like, let's get a bestseller badge and use pay-per-click and discounting and promos to make that happen.
Well, that's an interesting paradox because year one, you said you were too aggressive.
Yeah.
And you were spending too much on advertising and being too aggressive with your acquisition. But now you're saying that being really aggressive on acquisition was what took you to 100 million. So was it just that you needed to focus all of that aggression into a few key things, or like what was the difference between those two mindsets?
I think it was the focus, like focusing on the probiotics category, cutting SKUs that were just like, maybe they're profitable, but they were like dwindling. And I was like, we're never going to be number one. Like this is not our expertise. So let's cut those out. Let's focus on what works. And I think hiring like good people that, you know, I'm not like a numbers guy. I'm not like a pay-per-click marketing guy. So I hired a really good person and he was like, man, this is like, you guys are just like, they like call me the blow and go guy. They're like, you're this like blow and go marketer where you just like spend a fuck ton of money and like hope it makes money. I was like, yeah, I guess so. But like he came in and started being like, okay, let's optimize towards CAC. Let's optimize towards ROAS. Like, let's really dial this in. And so I think like that, my mindset of like blow and go, spend a bunch of money, and his optimization of like, you know, we kind of balance each other out. So like having someone on your team that can balance you out and like, I don't know, like I guess enhance your weaknesses or like make up for your weaknesses. My weakness is like, I'm not a good analytics person. I'm not a good numbers person, but like hiring someone like that.
So is your approach then to spend on pay-per-click until you win in that category and solidify the market share, solidify the conversion rate, and then stick there and knowing that it's gonna back out over a 12-month period or so?
Pretty much. I mean, at this point, we'll set a budget, right? We'll say like, okay, let's just call it $1 million for a product launch, and that'll be over 12 months or whatever the time frame is. I'll just use 12 months as an example, and we'll say like, this is the bucket. We have $1 million to play with. It's gonna be pay-per-click, promos, like whatever. We can do. Our marketing team can do whatever they want with that $1 million, but it's, they're smart enough to say like, pay-per-click's giving us the best return, so we're gonna allocate the most money towards pay-per-click. Maybe we'll put a little bit into Facebook. I mean, now TikTok's doing well, so we'll put some more money into TikTok, and then we'll start to see what's getting the most return. But like, it's not, we don't just have like an endless amount of money to like invest in a product.
But you're looking at that $1 million as your acquisition cost. Like that's what you're willing to lose.
That's what we're willing to lose
in order to win a category.
Exactly.
Knowing that it is going to both back out but also build enterprise value.
Right. Exactly.
Because if you're winning in that category, you're probably adding tens of millions of dollars to the value of the company.
100%.
And when you look at it as I'm willing to lose $1 million to add $50 million in enterprise value,
right,
that's a good ROI.
100%.
And that doesn't even factor in the cash flow that will back out on the other side of that.
I mean, I can give you a real life example. Is like right about a year ago, so about 12 months ago, we launched a digestive enzyme product, and we looked at like the number one digestive enzyme was doing 25-ish million a year on their SKU. And so we said, okay, if we have the number one digestive enzyme product, that's a $25 million, to us, that's a franchise product, right? Like that adds a ton of value to the business. It's a ton of EBITDA. It's like a cash cow machine. So like, what can we invest in that? We decided like, we'll invest like $3 to $5 million on this new SKU over the next 12 months to make it so we can have a 20, and it worked, and we did. Granted, if we were like going down that path and like 6 months in, we were just like getting pounded and we had like lost half that money and like nothing was working and we weren't seeing momentum, we probably would have reevaluated. We wouldn't just like flush $5 million down the toilet. But we saw the momentum after a few months. We're like, this is working. Okay, let's keep doubling down. Let's keep doubling. So there is like a give and take of like, if it's not working, and I think the question probably is, well, how do you know if it's not working?
Yeah. When do you pull the plug?
Yeah. That's a hard question to answer. I think for everyone's different, but for us, you kind of have an idea of like, is this getting momentum, right? If you're investing money and you're not seeing like significant sales, you're not seeing like month over month growth, like it's just kind of stagnant. Like, I think you need to like question, is it the right product? Is it the right product market fit? Like, do you have the right listing? Like, there's a lot of things you can tweak to make it better. Like, we use Amazon's A/B test. I'm getting in the weeds here, but we use like Amazon's A/B testing tool a lot to like optimize our listings, and that can change, like, it dramatically change the sales. So
it's also a lot harder to know if something is working or not when you have 19 different things that you're focused on
100%.
Versus 3.
Yeah.
And it's very refreshing to hear that you can do so much more with less and focused on fewer things.
So let's break apart what Logan just said in layman's terms. He had a couple of metrics that he was optimizing for. He was optimizing for reviews. He's optimizing for conversion rate. He's optimizing for market share on Amazon.com. These are actually controllable things. When you have those metrics that you're optimizing for, that if you do well at those numbers, they'll lead to long-term success, you can put all of your focus into things that you do today, things that will move the needle today. I'll give you an example of how I usually recommend most entrepreneurs start. I say that they should optimize for things like email addresses and reviews. Those two things are very controllable because you can create content, you can run ads, you can make posts on social media that build your email list. And if you build a connection with those subscribers, you can often turn them into sales and reviews. In the short term, that stuff doesn't move the needle today, but it will in a week and a month and 6 months and a year. Most people just don't want to do those small steps that lead to the long-term success. So that is what Logan was doing when he's optimizing for things like sales from pay-per-click and getting reviews. It doesn't take you to 9 figures today or tomorrow or next week or next month, but optimizing for a few metrics that you know will win in one strategy will pan out over the long term. So what area can you put all of your attention into that is somewhat controllable? You can control to some extent how many email addresses you have. You can hustle to get more people on your list. You can hustle to get more raving fans. You can hustle to get more reviews. You can build strategies that optimize for all of those things. You can control your conversion rate by running split tests on your different products. you can control how much content you create. You can control how many people you interact with. These are not the scalable things. These are not the things that you can build a system for, at least at first. We have to work our way there, and over 6 months, we've done enough work that most people are not willing to do, and you're the person who wins. Somewhere during this transformation, Logan discovered that he needed to make a personal transformation as well. His business was starting to resurrect, but he was still overweight and out of shape, unhappy, and working 12-hour days while missing important days with his family. And he decided that he needed to make a change in order to both have joy and happiness, but also to become the type of leader that was capable of taking Physician's Choice to the next level. And in this section, Logan talks about when he started to make that transformation of becoming the leader that he needed to be in order to see that Physician's Choice became the company that he knew it could be.
There was another turning point for you somewhere in that transition where you just decided to take care of yourself differently, and you started taking care of your mindset a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Where did that happen in the time frame?
So like early on in my journey, so we're like going on 6.5 years now at this point at Physician's Choice. So I'd say like the first 3 years I was like a complete disheveled fucking mess. Like I was like 60 pounds heavier. Like if I showed you guys a picture of me, you'd be like, well, that guy looks like a complete, like I looked like a meth head. Like
when we were reintroduced, I didn't recognize you.
Yeah.
I was like, I've never met this person
Sure.
before.
I was a mess.
And then I went back, I was like, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a different person.
Yeah. I look at like pictures of myself and I like say to my wife, I'm like, how did you stay with me? Like, this is what I really like. My hair, I would like, hadn't got a haircut in like 6 months. I was just a disaster. Because I was so plugged in. I was obsessed with like winning. I was obsessed with like the fact that we were like getting our asses kicked so bad. I was like consuming. I just couldn't focus on anything. So I'd say like around year 3, we really, and again, it goes back to this, like we got a good team in place, and it's not easy to get these good teams in place, right? It took a long time, like probably cycled through hundreds of people to get like a core leadership team of like 5 or 6 people that are just like amazing. Like to this day, it's like I probably work 2-3 hours a day because our leadership team is so good that they're smarter than I am. I trust them to make the right decisions. Like I can focus on the bigger strategy. So to answer your question, like around 3 years, I started to be like, okay, I got to get like myself in shape, and I got to be here for my family, for my wife. Like it helps. Like, and at the time, it was a hard disconnect because you're so used to grinding, or I was so used to just like 10-hour a day, 12-hour a day, grinding, like pushing myself to the limit. And I was like, can I succeed in business without doing that? Like I would see other people doing it. And I was like, this is just like Instagram bullshit. Like, you know, this guy's over here like on a jet, like having this great life. And I'm here like glued to a fucking computer, like a crackhead. I was like,
Does that sound familiar to anybody else? Yeah.
I was like, there has to be a better way. And I can't answer the question if I didn't have that team or not, if I would have been able to like step out the way I did, but I can tell you that I did step out, and I did like, you know, get my health in shape. I got my like mindset right. I got everything, and like I'm operating in a way better place. I think I'm making way better decisions. I made a lot of mistakes because I was like so like in that crackhead world of just like sitting at my computer all day, just like a maniac. And I think if I wasn't doing that and I was healthier and I was in a better mental spot, I would have probably made better decisions early on.
Yeah, you've said in some of your public content that if you could go back, you would have done that a lot earlier.
Yeah.
And that even if that meant that you went a little bit slower, that you wish that you had prioritized that earlier. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, I think, you know, like to this day, I question like, God, what did I like do to myself? You know, like over those years, just like from a health perspective, like I feel like I just like, I don't know, I grinded myself down so bad for so many years. And like, yeah, it got us to having a successful business, but like now, you know, like I'm in good shape and good health, but like I feel like I paid the price. Like I took years off my life to do that. And I think what I've realized, you know, now that I'm like an old grandpa up here, is like you have a lot of time to make money and build a business. Like you had like, I was in this big hurry to be like, I need to get this super successful business and like be super rich and like blah, blah. And then like it happens and you're just like, oh, okay, like now what? Like I could be doing this until I'm like 60 and that'd be totally fine. Like I could go a little slower. I think when there's opportunity, like I'll back up, like I think when there's opportunity, like TikTok, Amazon early days, like you have to get aggressive, you have to move fast, but that doesn't mean you have to like destroy yourself. It means like make smart decisions, hire the right people, like go all in, double down on things that are working. but also take care of yourself, because it's like a long journey. Like building a successful business doesn't happen in a year. It doesn't happen in 2 years. It doesn't even happen in 3 years. Like it takes a lot of time. And what I've realized, like AJ's a good friend of mine. Like he kind of like kept pounding this in my head. Is like good businesses compound on each other year over year. And it took me till like get to this year to like 200 million to say like, oh, he's actually fucking right. Like good businesses do compound on each other year over year. And if you have a good business, like, and you make the right decisions, you don't have to just kill yourself. You can kind of step back, take it a little slower, and let the compounding work.
Why do you think you were in such a hurry at the beginning?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think because I just wanted to like get rich. I mean, if I'm being honest, like I just was like, I want to make a bunch of money. Like I'm tired of like, you know, I was like, I didn't grow up with money. My dad was like a house cleaner. I was like, I'm tired of being poor. I'm tired of like living this like shitty life. And I grew up in like a affluent area in Boulder, and all my friends had money. And I was like, I want to have money. And so I was in a hurry to make money. I think like at the time being like 30, I was like, I'm so old. Like I gotta like keep up, you know, now that I'm 40-ish, almost 41, I'm like, yeah, I'm not that old. I got a lot of time. Like you have so much time in your life that like you can slow down. You know, like I was reading something about the guy that started, I don't know what it was, but it was some Chinese conglomerate billionaire, started when he's 55. Like we have time.
Started when he was 55.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me about the way you're describing it is it sounds like being in a hurry was what kept you stuck for so long.
Yeah.
And not just at the beginning of this business, but you had other businesses before then that you were just trying to force to make happen.
Yeah.
And then 1 year into Physician's Choice, you're thinking about declaring bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like that hurried persona is what was hurting the actual success. And when you started to prioritize other things, you had more of a space to be able to grow and compound.
That's deep. You should be a psychiatrist.
I
feel like I'm getting cathartic up
I
here.
have a podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually very true. I think that's a really good point. And I think even to like go deeper on that is like when I was in that hurry and I was in that mental state, like I couldn't hire good people, right? Like I was like, I couldn't even like get unplugged from my computer for like a few hours a day to like go sit in an interview. And the people that I'm talking about like hiring, like these are like people from like, you know, top consulting firm, like really smart people that have worked at like other big C, like they're not going to want to work for some like crackhead that like just sits at his computer all day, like looking like a maniac. Like, you know, you have to like step away, you have to get healthy, and you have to like be able to be present and like out of this like crazy space to get the kind of good people I'm talking about. So I do think that like being in a hurry, like really being in a hurry and like not taking a step back and slowing down, like really almost slowed down our growth and my business growth.
Yeah, there's like a frenetic energy that no one wants, except for other frenetic, chaotic people. They don't want to be around that.
Right, for sure.
And the highest quality people are not frenetic and antsy and scared.
Right.
Right. The best people are calm and they're collected and they have a long-term view and they have a good time horizon and they're strategic, which means that you have to at least look something like that in order to be the type of leader that attracts those types of people.
You know, so often we want the system, we want the hack, we want to know what we have to do, we want the checklist, and we completely ignore ourselves. And guess who's leading this whole ship? It's you and me. If you and me are not taken care of at the top, if we're not taking care of our health, we're not taking care of our mind, we're not taking care of the people around us, we feel lonely and isolated, how long are we going to be able to operate at a 10 out of 10 level? Not very long. For a lot of us, the reason why we're not seeing the results that you know that you're capable of is because you are not the person that you are capable of. And unfortunately, that comes down to our habits. It comes down to the way we think. It comes down to the way we treat our body. It comes down to the way that we sleep. Because when you're operating at a 10 out of 10 level, it's only a matter of time that energy starts to influence the direction and the growth of your company. If you have a really good product, if you are good at marketing, if you do the basics, if you optimize for those core metrics that you can control, and you work really hard, there's a good chance that you can build a 7-figure company. is almost a very good chance that you can build a 7-figure company. You might even be able to build an 8-figure company like Logan did, but you are not going to be able to build a 9-figure company. In order to get to 9 figures like Logan did, you have to acquire a new skill set, and that skill set is working with really good people. You can only get really good people if you're a really good person yourself, and that requires that you make a transformation into being the type of leader that is capable of seeing the vision of your company come to fruition. But you need other people too. In this clip, Logan talks about how at some point they had just random people throwing together the operations of the business, and he knew he needed to get better people if he wanted to go from 8 figures to 9 figures.
There was like a kind of like a turning point. I think like our numbers got really crazy, right? Like year 1, we did like 3 million revenue, lost $1 million. Year 2, we just like really started taking off, and we did like.
What did you say? You 3 million top line, but you lost $1 million profit.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's aggressive.
it was aggressive. Yeah.
And
we
wasn't
were super
working.
aggressive.
Yeah.
It wasn't working. But we were building up subscription, which at the time I didn't really like. Whatever. I didn't really know about, or I didn't like get into the weeds on. But that started compounding year 2. In year 2, we did like. End of year 2, I think we did 25, 26 million. So like, and then the business started becoming profitable. So we like really took off year 2. But like our finances were just a complete mess. I had no idea what was going on. I was like hiring these bookkeepers, like just, I had like Sally Joe Sue come in who like couldn't even like open her laptop. And I was like trying to like Slack. She's like, what is this Slack? I hired this like other guy that was like, definitely like taking way too much Adderall. He was like in the basement doing like calculations. Like we were working out of Airbnb. It was like fucking weird. So I was like, I could not get, and I was posting for like bookkeeper. I'm talking to a friend of mine that's like a CFO at a $2 billion a year company. And he's like, bro, like what is this bookkeeper word you're using? He's like, you need a proper fucking finance person. Like you need a director of finance, like maybe a CFO. He's like, you have a $30 million a year company and you're trying to hire a bookkeeper? And I was like, it kind of hit me then. I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. Like, I'm in like way over my head. Like, I'm trying to hire like, Mary Jo Sue to run our like $30 million, like.
I can just see the job posting now. Need a real fucking finance person.
Yeah. So this was like kind of a moment that hit me where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just like so plugged in, like obsessed with like Amazon numbers and Amazon rankings and like, bestseller tab that like, I actually need to like step back and build a real company here. I need to like hire people. I need to like get my shit together, like not be in my pajamas all day. Like I need to like take this seriously. So this was like a real like turning point where I was like, okay, to hire people, we need to like professionalize the business a bit, right? We were working out of an Airbnb that me and my business partner had. We converted into an office, and like I was like, I can't like bring people into this house in the suburb and be like, you want to be our director of finance and you can work in the guest bedroom. Like I was like, this is just not going to work out. So we were like, we got to professionalize the business a bit, and I have to like step out. And so that was kind of the turning point of like, okay, I'm going to step back. I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm going to hire I hired an HR person to come in and like help us professional, which is a weird hire at this point because we had like 4 dudes in an Airbnb, and I was like, why do you need to hire an HR person? It's like, seems very fucking random. But my thought was like, we'll bring her in and she will help us professionalize the business a bit. She'll help us like put together a hiring funnel. She'll help us go recruit from like other big CPG brands or like big consulting firms with really smart, like she can help bring in the talent, and I'll do interviews with her. Like I didn't know how to like interview some guy from like Bain and Company or like some super smart, like I was just like not on that page at this point. So that kind of
at this point, are you still 60 pounds overweight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me like you were both professionalizing the business, but also professionalizing your personal life in some way. Like there seems to be this conscious decision that you were going to stop fucking around.
There was, yeah. But I think the business came first. I was like, I gotta professionalize the business so I can step out of it and like start to take care of myself, which probably was backwards. I probably could have done both at the time, but I think at the time I just didn't really understand that. So yeah, I don't know.
So this HR person came in and kind of gave you some space in some way.
She gave me space to hire people, and like, we would go and do interviews then, and like people were throwing out these like, for me, hard questions like, what's your 401k plan? And what's your like, COBRA benefits? I was like, fuck is a COBRA?
Ask
like,
the bookkeeper.
I was like, I don't fucking know. But she was able to like field these questions. She's like, oh, we're working on our 401k plan. Here's our health benefits. Let me walk you through the package. Here's how the bonus program we're putting together. Like she could like start professionalize everything with like these potential employees. So this is a big turning point for us where it's like, okay, she helped us get who is now our CFO. We hired him as like a director of finance who's just like an absolute killer, like a complete rock star. I would not trade this guy for like $10 million. He's the best employee I've ever had. Like without her, I would have never gotten, and like he was even questioning, like he's told me now, he's like, man, I was like a bit skeptical of like, what is going on here? But he's like having her in the room and like, she's like, you guys presented really well. Like, so that really kind of shifted the course of our business. I hired a CEO to run the business maybe about 2 years ago. And like before that, we'd always talk about strategy, and I was like, this fucking strategy talk, like it's so annoying. Like, what is this?
Just spend more money.
Yeah, like the strategy is to win.
Tell
like,
the bookkeeper.
What is this strategy? But he came from Elf Cosmetics, which is like, a $10 billion market value. Like he was like worked, for a TPG private equity company for 14. Like he's got a lot of high level experience. And so he put together like, okay, this is our strategy. We're going to focus on and I helped work with this, like, what is our strategy? But it was like, we're going to focus on the core SKUs. So that hasn't changed, right? We're going to like double down on our core. We still do that. So our top 3 SKUs, now it's 4 because we're going to include the digestive enzyme. Like we're going to double down on those. We're going to like go really deep in retail accounts. So we're not going to like spread wide into like mass retail. We're like in Walmart and we're in Target, and we're going to go super deep in those accounts. Like we're going to like invest in those relationships. We're going to try to get like end caps. We're not going to try to get into like Walgreens and 7-Eleven. Like we're not going to go wide. We're going to go deep. So like this strategy kind of like helped lay the groundwork of what are we going to do?
I want to remind you that Logan was sitting in the audience of the Capitalism Conference just a few years ago, and today he has one of the largest supplement companies in the world. It might be the #1 supplement company on Amazon.com. He started back at a time when there was less competition, when there were fewer supplement companies, and his strategy was right for the time. There weren't as many people running pay-per-click, there weren't as many people being aggressive trying to buy market share, and that strategy may not be the right strategy for somebody who is starting today. So I asked him, what would be the strategy if you were starting over today? For those who are watching in the audience, for those of you who are seeing these clips on YouTube, what would be his recommendation for someone who was starting today and wanted to have 8 or 9-figure success over the next 5 to 6 years? What is the best opportunity today? Here was his answer.
If you were starting Physician's Choice right now and you wanted to dominate a category, what would your playbook be the same, or would you take a different playbook based on the changes that have happened in the last year or so?
If I was starting a new brand today, my playbook would be Amazon and TikTok, and I would not mess with anything else. I don't even know if I would build a website just for aesthetic presences, but like I wouldn't be like trying to drive traffic to it. I wouldn't be messing with like Facebook this is just me personally, because I've never been able to succeed.
Does that sound familiar at all? Like those are the 2 white spaces.
Those are the white spaces, yeah. And even Amazon, like it's gotten more competitive, right? It's like still, but when I started Amazon, it was also competitive.
Yeah.
Like it was a different competitive. There was like black hat competitors, like screw with you. Like it was a different.
That's a great point. It was a different kind of competitive.
Right.
Like it's still competitive. It's always going to be competitive, but it's different where the competition is now. Now it's more consolidated over paid media.
Right.
Whereas before it was just like a bunch of cheaters, and that's how you were competitive. It's like pick which is worse.
Yeah.
Paying your way to play the game or fighting off a bunch of fake reports that are coming at you.
I think Logan is bang on with this point. You go after a big market, and then you target a subgroup of that market that's easy to target. That's a certain group of people within that big market. And then I would suggest that you build an email list of those people so that you can launch the product and get the snowball building over 30 to 90 days. That's your opening move. And then you start to optimize on Amazon.com until you're doing at least 25 to 50 sales a day. And when you're ready for expansion, you can turn on the magic that is happening right now with TikTok Shop. I think that's the strategy. Really big market, pick a subgroup, get good at Amazon, and then turn on TikTok Shop. That's all you need to be able to have a multi-million-dollar business over 12 to 24 months. And I mean it. Those are the only things that you need to focus on. It's a really good time right now to follow that playbook. Hear me. It's a really good time right now to follow that playbook. So if you're watching this and you're like, I want to do what that guy did, I want to do what these people in the audience are doing and they're building multi-million-dollar brands, here's an easy thing for you to do today. You can download the free course that we just put together over at capitalism.com/playbook. When you go over there, you're going to get the playbook for how we get our businesses to 7 figures in 12 months or less. There's also going to be a 15-day indoctrination sequence with case studies and examples and people from the audience who have done this and are seeing success, as well as what is working right now. It's a free course. It's at capitalism.com/playbook. Go over there, put in your best email address, and this is a great first step for you to come up with ideas, for you to realize what your plan is going to be so that a few years from now, you're either at 7 figures or maybe you're way beyond that and we're on stage breaking apart your case study for how you got started at the right time and now you have a multi-million-dollar business. We do it every day here at capitalism.com. That's what we're in the business of doing, is helping entrepreneurs build 7-figure companies and having multi-million-dollar exits. I'm Danny Moran with capitalism.com. Thanks for watching. Tell me what your favorite part of this video was in the comments below and I'll interact with you there. See ya.